Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/malicious compliance. In today's episode, oh, you want some mathematical rigor? I'll give you some. Theater is not good a reason for a field trip? We'll go to the parliament then. Choose any other name? Alright, we will. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Oh, you want some mathematical rigor? I'll give you some. First of all, English is not my first language, so my apologies for the mistakes. Backstory. This happened while I was in 12th grade. I'm pretty good, and by that I mean, without false modesty, that I was basically dominating my entire school at maths. It was, and still is, one of my main passion, and I was basically 2 or 3 years ahead of the required math level. I also have a pretty large math culture, which will be important later. Once again, this is not to brag, but just to give you an idea about why messing up with me about maths isn't a good idea. The story. My 12th grade teacher was special. It was his first year at this school, and for context, he was an old, very old, prideful jerk, like the never wrong type. Now, I know that math is all about rigor. But every mathematician out there will tell you that excessive rigor isn't helpful at all and often hide the actual maths. This teacher wanted everything to be detailed. Like, excessively detailed. If you skipped one line in your derivation, you would lose points. Even though, as I said, this line could be easily done in your head. Like if you ended up with 2*2 plus 1 and you were enough of a fool to write on the next line equals 5, you would lose points because you didn't write equals 4 plus 1 and only then equals 5. Now I get this kind of rigor can be good when dealing with a new topic. But this level of detail in 12th grade is stupid. The part that really made me angry was the grades. I would usually end up with perfect grades. Side note here, where I live grades aren't given as percentages, so I'll translate the notes in approximative percentages, but not with him. I barely succeeded in getting higher than 70%, whether in tests or in homework, and even though everything was correct. And I didn't really care, because the grades in themselves aren't really important. For future school's admissions, the position in the class was, and I was still very much at the top. No, what made me very angry is the other students. Other side note here, I planned to become a math professor, and I always helped my classmates when they had a hard time in maths, explaining concepts and whatnot. This year, everyone's grade plummeted. I'm talking about hours of hard work to go from 25 to 30%. And for them, the future wasn't as sure as for me because the ranking was always changing. On the day before the holidays, he gave us back in homework. I barely had a 60%, and my best friend who was struggling with the topic, basic integration, ended up with a 10% even though any reasonable teacher would have graded her something like 60%. The revenge. I went ballistic. The end of the year was slowly approaching and such disastrous results could bar my friend, and a lot of other students, from getting accepted in the schools they deserved. But the teacher gave an homework for the holidays. I had 2 weeks, I have had enough of his sh*t, and the revenge is coming. Remember when I told you I had a lot of mathematical culture? This happens to include axioms of ZFC set theory and the work of Bourbaki. To those who didn't understood a single word here, maths, in their purest form, are based on some elementary bricks that have to be assumed and can't be proven, even though they seem intuitive. Those bricks are called axioms, and the ZFC set theory is a collection of such axioms. Nicola Bourbaki is a fictive name given to a group of mathematicians that decided to rewrite maths based on the axioms. Their work consists pretty much impossible to read cumbersome notations that are as rigorous as you can get. So I did exactly that. Day and night, with very little breaks, I wrote hundreds of pages of pure, unreadable, cumbersome but rigorous maths. A level of rigor even my teacher himself wasn't expecting from anyone. And this wasn't easy because I had to construct the theory of integration from scratch. It was actually a nice experience because I ended up stumbling on very interesting topics, but it was exhausting. Still, after 2 weeks, I successfully completed the homework with absolute rigor. Now, I could have said absolute horsish *t for most of it because I was pretty sure that he wouldn't go through all that, but it ended up being a personal challenge that I happily completed. The reaction. On the first day of class, I arrived a little bit early with my bag and a suitcase to contain this massive amount of paper, handwritten mind you. Before the teacher arrived, I took my work out of the suitcase, and my classmates were confused. No one except my friend knew my plan. When the teacher arrived and asked us to bring him our homework, I let everyone do it, and then I stood up, picked up what my ridiculously sized homework and walked slowly to his desk, while his face was more and more puzzled with every step. I laid it down on the pile, with a big smile, and started to walk away when he interrupted me. "What is that?" "My homework." "Is there an issue?" "I want to talk to you after class." All of this was expected. I knew he wouldn't confront me in front of the whole class, because I already proved him wrong a couple of times before, and he was way too proud to accept it. So I went back to my desk, not without maliciously smiling to the whole class. 2 hours later, the class is finished, I go see the teacher, and the dialogue went something like this. "You wanted to see me?" "Yes. This is obviously not your homework." "What is this?" Now my goal was to play dumb and let him realize all by himself what I did. "I don't get you. This is my homework. What's the issue?" "This isn't possible. It is way too massive. For the last time, what is this?" He was boiling with anger from my apparent lack of understanding, and this was glorious. "Well, it wasn't easy. Sure, it's a lot, but it is my homework, sir." Realizing this wasn't going anywhere, he told me to go. When I burst out of the room, everyone basically jumped on me to ask what was going on. I explained them everything, and we were all laughing our asses off when the teacher left the classroom, even more puzzled. The aftermath. 3 things I didn't tell you about this teacher. First, he prides himself with grading our papers as fast as possible, sometime in one evening. Second, nobody likes him. And by that I mean all other teachers' administration despise him, teachers because he is messing with our grades, administration because he is an endless source of complaints. Third, holiday homeworks are worth a disproportionate amount in the final grade. On Wednesday, he gives us back our homework, but mine is missing, obviously. I ask him, "Sir, you didn't give me my work back." He looked at me with the nastiest gaze one can imagine, probably because he tried understanding what I wrote and failed. "I'm not grading that." "Why?" I asked this with the most theatrical shocked tone, which induced a few chuckles. "You know why. Stop playing nice." The day goes on, and once again this was expected. Final part of my plan is coming. I go directly to admin. Side note, I don't really know how the school's hierarchy are designed in other places, so admin here means people that are in charge of him, and can force him to do stuff. I explain them the situation, but I don't bother them with mathematical details. I basically tell them that I tried to be more rigorous than usual since the teacher seems to like rigor, and that it obviously made my work a little bit longer, but that this is no reason to not grade it, and that because of the proportion of it, it would basically destroy my GPA. The teacher is called on the spot, and have to explain himself to admin. He tries to justify himself, but admin, that is not blind to what I was trying to achieve and seemed to be on board with it, was having none of it. A full argument later in which I wasn't able to say a single word, admin basically says to my teacher that he has to grade my work, and fairly. He is fuming, and I won. I knew I won because knowing how proud he is, he will pass an enormous amount of time trying to find any single mistake, and to do that he had to understand what I was writing. He knew that he couldn't randomly assign a grade because I would ask him to point out my mistakes. 3 months, without any assignment from his part, later, he gives me my work back. I got my 100%, he got to learn about some pretty cool maths, and most of all, he stopped annoying us with everything that he didn't consider perfectly rigorous. After that, I did my best to help lost students get back on track, and in the end, pretty much everyone was accepted to the school they deserved. Theater is not good a reason for a field trip? We'll go to the parliament then. Obligatory disclaimers, on mobile, English is not my first language. Seeing all the memes about school and reading some MCs done by students reminded of one that was done against the local education committee. This happened at the end of the 90s. In my country, in order for a school to go to a field trip, they have to ask for permission from the local education committee. They also have to prove that the trip provides an educational purpose. The hero of the story was my literature teacher, let's call her Chloe. The year before me, she was teaching Antigone, the ancient classic of Sophocles. Because she always tried to provide the best education for her students, she found out that the theater troupe would stage the play for a limited time in the capital. That was a rare opportunity because most of ancient classics are staged during the summer on a big theatric festival. She talked about to the headmaster, who agreed that it was a good opportunity, and they submitted a petition for a field trip. The education committee answered a week later, basically making the school miss their window, that the request was declined due to, and I quote, watching a theatrical performance doesn't cover any educational purpose, since it's an entertainment activity. The headmaster and Chloe were disappointed, to say the least, but they couldn't do anything about it, this time. Chloe did the best she could, assigning roles to some of her students and kind of play the whole thing during class. But Chloe remembered. The next year, it was my class's turn tackling on of the classics with Chloe. Now, our first year in high school, the equivalent of sophomore in the US, a major overhaul had happened to all of our subjects, removing some, adding others and changing some. In literature, the change was made from Antigone to Oedipus Rex and Oedipus at Colono, the oft-forgotten sequel. What? Did you think Hollywood invented the unnecessary sequels? And guess what? A troupe in the capital is staging Oedipus Rex. Cue malicious compliance. That year Chloe had done her homework. She had read the rules and regulations from cover to cover. She submitted again, but slightly changed. You see, during the overhaul, Political Science 101, not the exact name of the subject, but that was the gist of it, was added. So, she asked for a field trip to the parliament. When the committee asked what was the educational purpose of such a visit, she said it would give the students an idea of how democracy worked. They begrudgingly accepted, but as always, asked for receipts, important for later. So, one sunny morning, most of our class got on the bus and traveled to the capital. After a 3-hour trip, we were outside the parliament. Chloe asked to take some photo of the whole group outside the building. We went in, signed the log, Chloe got a copy of the log, had a 10-minute tour, went to the gallery, and took some photos. Back then wasn't a problem. All in all, we spent about 40 minutes in the building and then left. Outside, we were given a free pass until 1700 hours, it was around noon, to do whatever we wanted. We were to gather at 1700 hours and go to the theater. After the play, on our way, Chloe asked any of us who took photos to print them as soon as possible and bring her copies. Aftermath. Kids being kids, we had talked to friends from other schools about going as a class to see the play. That reached the committee, which in turn fined our school for using a field trip for entertainment purposes. The headmaster and Chloe challenged it. A hearing was scheduled and some of the students, including me, are called as witnesses. We are grilled by the committee, answered truthfully, instructed to tell the truth, not to try to cover anyone. And then the chair of the committee calls Chloe in and lays down the law, saying that she tried to game the system by using an excuse to go to the theater. Chloe produces the photos and the copy of the log. When someone tried to contest the claim based on time, Chloe asked one simple question. Can you point to me where exactly in the rules and regulations says we have to spend a certain amount of time to a certain activity to be considered educational? She was met by blank stares. Not having a proper answer, the fine was rescinded and the school was reimbursed for the trip. After that, other schools in the area started using the same plan for field trips. One final note. As I found out later, except from the prejudice that theater and art museums are entertainment, there was another reason for the committee to reduce the field trips. The ministry provided a hefty budget to the local communities for field trips. At the end of the school season, whatever was left of the budget was redistributed to the members of the committee as a bonus. A lot of local education committees kept the field trips to a bare minimum, with one having not approved a field trip for 4 years. Choose any other name? Alright, we will. This is a bit of light-hearted malicious compliance that happened a few years ago when I was in college. Our college has an annual cricket tournament managed by the students, with faculty and staff also allowed to participate, and it was organized online similar to how the Indian Premier League, cricketing equivalent of NBA, is organized. Each year, students would bid real money to form a team. The top 8 bidders get to form a team named after a city of their choice, and this would then be followed by player auctions where each team was given a purse of some fixed amount, and could use that to bid for players who would come up for auction in a random order. A bit like fantasy, except you are also competing with the other team owners to purchase each player. I and a few of my friends pooled a bid together, and we were among the top 8 bidders, so we got to choose a city. Since we were all from different cities, by common consensus we chose a place that is known for its beaches and parties. We were also allowed to add a descriptive word to the team name, like Giants for New York Giants, and we chose something, so that the acronym of the team name was the same as one of the events held on campus. An event, which while not secret, was not discussed openly for certain reasons. To spice up things a bit, we also chose a team logo that looked similar to something associated with the event, though on closer look, it was obvious that it was for something completely different. When we submitted our team name, the organizers flipped, and rejected the name, and asked us to choose another. The reason given was that the team names and logos would be mentioned in a presentation that was given to the incoming students of the next academic year, and they did not want our logo and acronym to give away details of the event that was not openly discussed. They even pointed to a line from their rule book to justify their stance. Now they were not wrong in saying they wanted to prevent any slippages. However, the name and logo would only have been an in-joke among everyone on campus, and for someone to guess at the presence of the event merely by these would have taken the deductive abilities of Sherlock Holmes. In other words, a very tiny risk, yes, but not worth fretting about. We made our case, and a few other students not associated with our bid agreed with us, but the organizers would not budge. Choose any other name, we will accept it, was the response. If you are being stubborn, we will maliciously comply. We relented, and chose a team named after Las Vegas. This again put the organizers in a tizzy. The team should be named after an Indian city, was the response this time. Of course, we were having none of it. Their rule book had nothing in it about teams only being named after Indian cities. But that is implied. We are a college in India, with Indian students, playing a tournament modeling along the Indian Premier League, so it is understood that teams would also be named after an Indian city. Well, no. We did have a few students from outside India. We asked the organizers whether they would deny those students, had they been successful in a bid, the opportunity to form a team named after their place of birth, which was outside India. They hemmed and hawed at this point, but were unwilling to relent. I was even accused of trying to find loopholes, to which my response was that I couldn't really say what their intent on the rules were, all I could do was interpret the rules as they were written. To be honest, we were all being brats here. We didn't really care so much about the team name, but this was college, and we were not about to miss an opportunity to take the piss. We were at a stalemate at this point, and agreed to defer to the judgment of one of the faculty members, who also happened to be the student affairs coordinator. Our meeting with the faculty member lasted all of 2 minutes. He agreed with us that the organizers were being overly paranoid, and allowed us to use our original name and logo. We celebrated by designing our jersey in colors that represent the event, and made the other team owners wish they had thought of our idea first. As it turned out, no one from the incoming batch of students caught on to what our team name and logo were supposed to symbolize, and all was well with the world. As far as I know, the rules were not updated either, so they are ripe for abuse by the future generations. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.